Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is Frayed Truths in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 26. Tsunaid has been locked in her office since yesterday afternoon. She hasn't emerged once. The sun rises in the sky early, as it always has in the land of fire. Shizun stands outside the door to the woman's office, sleep still clinging to her, as she clutches the pet pig in her arms. What do you think? Shizun asks the animal, trepidation in her voice. Should we go inside? Surely she's calmed down by now. Late yesterday afternoon, the Go Dame returned to her office in a right state. There had been fire in her eyes, in her steps, in every line of her body. When Shizun had attempted to ask what was wrong, she had received the full brunt of Tsunaid's temper, as the woman ordered her to get out. Tauntaun ran squealing from the room in a fright. Tauntaun squeals in her arms now, wriggling slightly. She's clearly still traumatized. Shizun pats the pig on the head as she takes a bracing breath. There. It's time we brave the possible storm. She pushes the door to the office open. Tsunaid is sitting slumped in her chair. She does not, to Shizun's relief, appear to be in a temper still. But she does look exhausted, dark circles prominent under her eyes. Her desk and floor are scattered with papers. She hasn't slept, Shizun realizes. Whatever she learned yesterday, it's kept her up all night. Tsunaid-sama, she asks. Are you all right? There's a deep crease in the Go Dame's brow. She doesn't look up from the files in front of her. Fine, she snaps, but there's no real anger in the words. They escape her lips like a reflex. Just, gah. She throws the papers down with a harsh exclamation. Her head falls forward, and she runs her hand over her tired face. I just can't believe this. What am I even supposed to do? Shizun ignores the mutterings, knowing the woman probably doesn't even realize she's speaking out loud. She bends over and releases Tauntaun from her arms, reaching over to pick up the file that's scattered on the ground. She slides the pages back into the manila folder. The label on the file identifies it as belonging to Itaki Uchiha. She sets it on the edge of Tsunaid's desk. Do you want to talk about it? She asks. Tsunaid shakes her head immediately. I can't. This type of information, if it were to get out. Shizun nods. I understand. These past few weeks, now being the Hokage's aide instead of just Tsunaid-sama's student, she's been handed a responsibility heavier than she's ever had before. Many things that have come across the Go Dame's desk aren't things she has the rank to know about, but due to her closeness, she ends up seeing them anyway. Tsunaid often shares with her things she should not know. But this is a different level of classified, and Shizun can read the severity of it in the stress lines on Tsunaid's face. Tsunaid leans forward with a sigh. She runs her manicured finger, the polish chipped across Itaka's name on the file. Her eyes swirl with troubled emotions. Shizun, she says after a moment. You remember my sensei, don't you? The kind of man he was. Shizun blinks at the words. Yes. I remember him well. Do you think he was a good man? A good leader? Her eyebrows furrow at the question. She wonders what this has to do with the Sandaime. Is this why her Shiso looks so troubled, so distressed? Sandaime-sama was always kind to me, she answers. He was kind to his village and its people. He treated them all like his own family. Tsunaid's expression shudders, and Shizun knows immediately that she's said something wrong. Her words have had the opposite effect of what she intended, but she doesn't know why, because she doesn't know what's wrong. Family, Tsunaid says, her nails scraping against Itaki Uchiha's file. Would you allow your own family's execution? Would you order a child? Tsunaid takes a shaky breath. She steadies herself, her lips a fine line. If you do something horrible, something unspeakable to stop something even worse, then does that make it right? Is that person still wrong? Shizun doesn't understand. But based on what the woman has said, she's able to grasp the broader context. I think, she says slowly, careful with her words, that being Hokage comes with making hard choices. And sometimes none of the choices you can make are good ones. I don't know what happened or what you discovered. But I know that Lord Third was a good man. Whatever you think he's responsible for, I'm sure he did the best he could. Tsunade stares at her a long moment. The troubled expression doesn't fade, but she seems to take in her assistant's words and appreciate them. Her lips curl slightly into a tired smile. Thank you, Shizuan. Anytime, Tsunade-sama. She stares down at the file in front of her, running her fingers repeatedly over the kanji scrawled on the tab. Itaki Uchiha. Could you summon Kakashi Hatake, please, Tsunade says. There's something I need to discuss with him. For once, Kakashi doesn't dream of Rin. He doesn't dream of the crackle of blue lightning, of a cascade of rocks, of bright blonde hair soaked with blood. He doesn't wake with the feeling of blood on his hands. Instead, he dreams of red eyes and a black and red cloak. He wakes with the phantom sensation of iron bands around his wrists and ankles, a katana repeatedly piercing his gut. When he walks out of his bedroom that morning to find Sasuke at his kitchen table, his eyes the same blood red as Kakashi's nightmare, Kakashi is ashamed by how his heart jumps in panic, his hand going immediately for a weapon. He relaxes instantly, once it becomes clear that the person sitting in his apartment is his student, not Itaki Uchiha. He forces his heartbeat to steady. He has another moment where he wonders what the kid is doing there, before the events of last night rush back. Right. I told him he could stay. Sasuke is sitting with a cup of tea in front of him, his Sharingan activated. Kakashi shakes off his uneasiness at the sight of that eye, venturing closer. Sasuke. Sasuke doesn't respond. He's staring ahead blankly, his eyes burning scarlet. Kakashi winces. He's seen this dozens of times before, but on seasoned shinobi, never on a genin. He walks forward slowly, careful not to startle him, and pulls back the opposite chair. He sits down and leans forward. It doesn't seem like a serious dissociative episode. Kakashi's seen some pretty bad ones while in Umbu, some of which led to a complete mental breakdown. One extremely memorable one, with Tenzo, had nearly ended with him getting his throat slashed open. This one isn't extreme. Whatever Sasuke is seeing right now, there's still awareness in his eyes. Kakashi reaches out to place a hand over his arm. Sasuke. A single touch is all it takes. Something flickers in Sasuke's eyes. His Sharingan shuts off as he blinks, coming back to the room he's in. Kakashi, he says with a frown. You okay? Kakashi says. You spaced out. He keeps his tone casual, uses the words spaced out, as if Sasuke was simply lost in thought rather than trapped in a flashback. Sasuke hates to be vulnerable, and if Kakashi draws attention to it, he'll be quick to shut down. Kakashi gives him the opportunity to pretend it didn't happen. Sasuke takes the out, even as he no doubt recognizes it for what it is. I'm fine. Your tea is garbage, by the way. Watch it, Kakashi says. I'll have you know, that tea was a gift. If it's so awful, why are you drinking it then? Sasuke raises the mug to his mouth. Because I need something to wake me up, and you don't have any coffee. Sorry. I'm not allowed to have coffee. Guy says I have a caffeine addiction. He comes by every week to search my cupboards. Sasuke huffs slightly. Kakashi looks him over. He's already dressed for the day, his clothes showing no sign of the damage they suffered last night in the heavy rain. His hitayate is tied around his head, and it's only when he sees it there that Kakashi realizes he hasn't seen Sasuke wear it lately. Not since before. Before attacking. Kakashi shifts his thoughts away from the memory of a katana and his stomach, a 7-year-old child curled up in the corner of a blood-soaked room. Did you sleep well? He asks. I slept, Sasuke answers, in a tone that Kakashi has leaned to recognize as drop it I don't want to talk. That's something at least. Kakashi nods. If Sasuke had any nightmares last night, he didn't hear. But Kakashi's always kept his own nightmares silent, so that doesn't mean anything. Sorry I didn't have an extra room. Sleeping on the couch couldn't have been comfortable. His student shrugs. It's not like I haven't slept in worse places while on missions. I've slept on the ground all the time. Kakashi glances at him discreetly, looking him over without making it obvious he's doing so. There are dark circles under his eyes, but he looks incredibly put together. The bandage on his hand and the fading bruise on his throat is the only sign that the last 2.5 weeks have happened. Sasuke looks nothing like he did last night in his doorway, fragile and trembling. Kakashi can almost believe that he's okay, if not for the fact that he's sitting in his apartment. Sasuke can pretend he's fine. But Kakashi knows what a face looks like just before it's about to break. He's seen it in the mirror often enough, has covered it up to keep anyone else from seeing it, too. And Sasuke has fracture lines all over him. All it would take is a single push. A slight pressure. And then, well, shatter. If possible, Kakashi would like to keep that from happening. Well, are we going to get to training? Sasuke asks. I've been ready to leave for nearly an hour. Kakashi rolls his eyes. Hold on, would you? I just got up. It's already nearly 7, you know. Just because you're 5 hours late every time doesn't mean I'm going to be. 5 hours? That's a bit of an exaggeration. No, it isn't. Kakashi opens his mouth to retort when there's a knock on the door. Kakashi turns his head toward it with a frown before getting up. Shizun, he says, with slight surprise, as he opens the door to see the dark-haired women standing there. He's only spoken with the Godame's aide on a few occasions, and all times have been extremely brief. I assume I've been summoned. You have, she affirms. Tsunade-sama wants you in her office immediately. Did she say why? Sorry. I wasn't allowed to know. Kakashi nods. With the door still open, he turns back to the preteen sitting at his table. Sasuke is making no effort to hide that he's listening to their conversation. No training then, he says. You can still train, Kakashi tells him. You'll just have to do it without me for a while. This shouldn't take too long. Just tell Naruto and Sakura I'll be a bit late. So no different from usual, then. Kakashi glares at him slightly at the remark. Watch it, he says. I'm letting you sleep on my couch. I could kick you out at any time. They both know he won't do it. And though Sasuke's not the type to speak it out loud, Kakashi can read the silent gratitude that's there. I know, his eyes say, even as he scoffs dismissively. Thank you. For letting me stay. Sakura's already been at the training field for 15 minutes when Sasuke shows up. She brightens the moment she sees him, a smile forming on her face. Sasuke-kun. I knew you were out of the hospital, but I didn't know you were coming to training. She went to see him yesterday only to be told that he'd been released earlier that day. She wanted to check on him, after hearing that Itachi Uchiha had escaped, but she realized that she didn't know where he lived. She looks him over now. He looks a lot better than he did in the hospital, and the bruise around his neck has almost faded completely. He's extremely pale under the morning sun. Where's Naruto? He asks. Sakura shrugs. I don't know. He and Kakashi-sensei are both late. Kakashi was summoned by the Hokage, Sasuke tells her. He said to get started training without him. She blinks. Oh. Okay. How do you know? I stayed with him last night. There's a slight hesitation before he says the words. Sakura feels a flash of surprise. Sasuke-kun stayed over Kakashi-sensei's? I don't even know where his apartment is. Sakura wonders why Sasuke stayed with him, but he already looks uncomfortable. So she doesn't press him on the topic any further, even though she's curious. What should we do then? Sasuke considers the question for a moment. Have you learned to walk on water yet? The floor spins beneath Kakashi's feet, as he struggles to process this horrifying truth. The massacre of the Uchiha clan was ordered by Konoha. He wishes he had a chair to sink into. Something to lean against. But he's standing in the Hokage's office, and Tsunade is in front of him, her expression darker than he's ever seen it. Her words ring in his ears, the reality of them slowly sinking in. Planning a coup. Itachi a double agent. Danzo, to spare Sasuke. He recalls just 2 days ago, chasing after Itachi. You know nothing, the missing nin had snarled at him, hands tightly gripping the collar of his vest. You understand nothing. Damn it, Kakashi hisses. He spins around, gripping the windowsill for support. Damn it. He wants to punch something. He settles for tightening his hold on the windowsill, marble edges digging into his palms. A dozen tiny little things that never made any sense by themselves come together in his mind, now forming a very clear picture. Red eyes blazing. My brother is all I think of. But what does this mean? What does this change? It changes everything about the situation, of course, but does it change anything about Itake? Ordered or not, choice or not, he's still an Akatsuki member. He still brutally tortured his brother, and nothing can ever excuse. But Kakashi remembers that 13-year-old kid. He feels sick. A child. Why? Kakashi demands angrily, spinning back toward the Godame. Why would you tell me this? You're directly involved, Tsunade says, her mouth thinning. Would you rather I didn't tell you? Yes. Because now that you have, I have to keep it from him. Sasuke can't know. The idea is unthinkable. Not now, when his mental state is so fragile. He wouldn't be able to handle it. The knowledge would shatter him. He would break. And now, Kakashi is going to have to look him in the eyes, this hateful knowledge burning in his chest. Sasuke can't know about this, he says. You know he can't know about this. Yet you told me anyway. Tsunade, to her credit, looks regretful. Good. She should. Kakashi doesn't want to know this. Not when he has a broken boy taking up residence in his apartment, destroying himself with questions of why. And now Kakashi knows the answers, or, he knows some of them, anyway, and he isn't allowed to open his mouth. Because speaking this secret could put Konoha at risk. Because speaking this secret to Sasuke. I don't want to know this, Kakashi thinks. How am I supposed to look at him, now that I know it? Why did you tell me, he repeats, quieter this time. Tsunade clenches her jaw. She seems to make an effort to banish any emotions she might have, standing straight and professional. Like a Hokage. Pretending she isn't just as affected by this revelation as he is. I don't know the whole story, she says. Only what the elders have told me, and I don't trust them enough to take everything they say at face value. And they know nothing of Itake's current involvement with the Akatsuki. Until I know more, I can't make any moves. And Danzo? Kakashi asks. Saying the name makes Kakashi sick. He always hated the man for his manipulations, but to think he would do something like this. Except it isn't that simple, is it? If the Uchiha were planning a revolt, then they needed to be stopped, there was no choice. But why Itachi? Why force a child to kill his own family? Kakashi closes his eyes. He doesn't know how he feels about this. Like Tsunade, he knows too little. Danzo is still locked up, Tsunade replies. He's going to stay there until I figure out what to do with him. But if I'm going to do this, I need Sasuke out of the way. He cannot get involved, understand? Kakashi tightens his jaw. He hates it, but he understands. What should I do? I'll assign your team a mission, she tells him. Something simple, but that will get you out of the village for a bit. A C rank. It's been a while since they've been on one, anyway. It has been a while. Since before the Chunin exams. Kakashi isn't looking forward to having to keep what he knows from Sasuke, but a mission assignment might be good for them. Alright, Kakashi agrees. I'll do it. But C rank better mean C rank this time. I don't want another incident like the Land of Waves. Sakura falls into the lake for the 5th time that afternoon. Her clothes and hair are soaking wet, and she chokes as the water floods into her nose. Water is different than climbing trees, Sasuke tells her. It moves. You have to move your chakra with it. Sakura scowls as she pushes herself back to her feet. They're standing out by the docks, and the water reaches up to her waist. Sasuke is standing close to her, his feet easily keeping balance on the surface of the lake. She looks up at him. He's completely dry, not a splash of water on him. It makes Sakura feel like she's being mocked. I don't understand, she says with a huff. Walking up trees was so easy. This is the same concept. Why is it so much harder? I told you, he says. Water is different. It's more difficult to master. It's a liquid, which means it's constantly shifting. You have to constantly shift your chakra with it. It's not like sticking to a tree. Sakura sighs. She stares at Suzuki's feet, standing on the water like a solid surface. She pulls her chakra to the solace of her feet and tries again. She stands. She's unable to stop the smile that spreads across her face, as she doesn't splash back down, but instead stands on the surface. She walks a few steps, carefully matching her chakra level to the shifting waters beneath her. She remains steady, and her smile is reflected in her reflection below her. Suzuki-kun, I did it. Suzuki throws a kick at her without warning. Eyes widening, she jumps back to avoid it and splashes right back into the lake. She chokes as water floods her nose and mouth, coughing. She pushes her dripping hair from her face, glaring. What the hell was that? Walking on water is one thing, Suzuki says. Fighting on water is another. You can't ever lose your focus. Sakura glares. When they first began, she was thrilled Suzuki was actually helping her instead of just ignoring her. Now, watching his perfect balance, she feels irritated. Never lose your focus, huh? You mean like this? Without warning, she tackles him. Suzuki's eyes widen, and Sakura feels a vicious surge of satisfaction as they both go crashing beneath the water. Sakura. A few minutes later, both of them are sitting on the dock, utterly drenched. Sakura is attempting to stifle her giggling as Suzuki wrings the water from his hair. Stop laughing, he hisses, and he looks angry enough to use his sherry-non. It's not funny. Sakura covers her mouth as another giggle escapes her. He's trying to look intimidating, but the affect is lost when he looks like a drowned cat. He looks adorable, actually, not that she's stupid enough to tell him that. It's kind of funny, she says with a smile. Besides, it's your own fault for falling in. I thought you said to never lose focus. I wasn't expecting you to tackle me. You started it by kicking me. Suzuki scowls and doesn't respond. He runs his fingers through the hair at the back of his head, trying to get it back to its usual style. Sakura watches him silently. There's something fragile about the moment. Suzuki is illuminated by the sun above them, and Sakura's breath catches. He's gazing out over the lake with a look in his eyes that suggests he's not present in his body. The breeze stirs his hair. He looks gorgeous like this. He looks breakable too. Suzuki-kun, Sakura says softly, breaking the stillness. Are you okay? Suzuki tenses slightly. He doesn't look at her, keeping his gaze fixed on the horizon. Emotion glimmers in his eyes. It's okay if you're not, she tells him. You don't have to be okay, you know. You don't have to pretend. Suzuki bites his bottom lip. His left hand, the broken one, with the now soaked bandages, clenches into a fist. It must hurt to move it, but he does it anyway, and something about the action makes tears spring to her eyes. She wonders if Suzuki even knows how to not be okay. She wonders if he even knows how to let his walls drop. She thinks of that 7-year-old child who returned to the academy missing his smile, an empty look in his eyes. Suzuki-kun. Before she makes a conscious decision to do it, her arms have wrapped around him. Suzuki goes stiff immediately, but Sakura doesn't pull back. She only tightens her arms around him, pressing her face into his shoulder. I'm sorry, she whispers. I wish you could have your family back, Suzuki-kun. I wish I could give them back to you. Suzuki is rigid in her embrace. She can feel his breath against her neck. Then slowly, so slowly, he relaxes. His spine curves as his body bends into hers. His chin drops against her shoulder. He doesn't hug her back, but that's okay. She doesn't need him to. Attack is still out there, Suzuki says quietly. I have to find him. Sakura tightens her arms. You won't be alone, she promises. It seems like they stay like that for a long time, though it's probably only a few moments. A month ago, Sakura would have given up her left kidney to be in this position, to be so close. Now, she just wants him to smile. She blinks away the tears stinging her eyes. A shinobi never shows tears. Kakashi shows up around 10 minutes later, proclaiming he'd been looking for them. He raises an eyebrow at their soaking clothes. What have you two been doing? Going swimming. You're late, Sakura accuses. Suzuki-kun was teaching me to walk on water, since you didn't seem to be bothered with showing up. Yes, but this time I have a genuine excuse. Kakashi brandishes a scroll, his eye curving up. We've been given a mission by Godame-sama. Come on, let's go. Suzuki glares at him. What, right now? Yep. I'm soaked. Sakura complains. Have you seen my hair? I can't leave looking like this. Then go change, Kakashi says, tucking the mission scroll away in his belt. And one of you go find Naruto. We leave in an hour. Chapter 27. It's raining heavily in Omegakure, as usual. As his hair becomes thoroughly soaked, Itaka finds himself missing the sunny skies of Konoha. By the time he reaches headquarters, he's completely drenched. The water has soaked through his cloak to the clothes he's wearing underneath. His bangs stick to his cheeks. He steps inside, the warmth hitting him immediately. Itake, Sasori says in surprise when he sees him. You're back. The main room is occupied by three of them. Deidara and Kakuzu are sitting around a table, playing what looks to be a game of Karuta with Sasori. Deidara scowls when he sees him. Kakuzu's expression doesn't change. You've been gone for a while, Kakuzu says in his low voice. Kisame said you'd been kidnapped by Konoha. He sounds skeptical of this claim, looking Itake over for any sign of what might have transpired. His eyes narrow when he finds nothing. We thought you might be dead, Sasori says, and there's actually a thread of relief in his voice. I was captured by Konoha, Itake tells them. But I am unharmed. How unfortunate, Deidara mutters. Itake ignores him. Where's Leader-sama? Where he usually is. Itake nods. He pushes his dripping bangs out of his eyes, and Kakuzu glances at him as he throws a card down. You look like a drowned rat, he tells him. More like a drowned weasel, Deidara says with a cackle. Get it, Because his name. We get it. Shut up and play your turn. Itake walks past the three of them, toward the staircase on the other side of the room. No more than half a minute later, he hears the familiar sound of Deidara yelling. One of them must have insulted his art again. He walks up the stairs, toward the very top of the tower. He looks down at his feet as he walks, and his vision is blurred in his right eye. There's a persistent ache in it that hasn't gone away. He sees his brother's face. He sees the shattered look in his eyes. Tell me it was more than that. Tell me I'm more than that. The key to his cuffs is still stuffed in his pockets. Itake climbs the steps, and he feels it weighing him down. He wonders if he's in the wrong place. If he's walking in the right direction. He clenches his teeth, trying to push down his feeling of wrongness. The doubts that nag at his mind. Who is right? Who is wrong? Was leaving the right choice? He shoves his uncertainty down as he reaches the top floor. Madara will be able to sense it. He can't show any of it while in his presence. Itake enters the room without knocking. Madara no doubt sensed him when he entered the building. Nagato would have sensed him the moment he crossed the village boundaries. It is as he expected. None of them look surprised when they see him. Pain is standing near the open balcony that looks out over Omegakure, and he turns his head when Itake enters. Madara already has his gaze on him, Sharingan burning beneath his mask. Itake, Pain says, stepping up to him. I was surprised when I sensed you. We heard you had been captured. I was, Itake tells him, inclining his head. But escape wasn't hard. I made my way back here as fast as I was able. Pain narrows his swirling purple eyes. You were held at their mercy for a few days. Yet they did not kill you. They wanted information, Madara speaks up. Am I right? The only part of him Itake can see is his eyes. They are sharp beneath his mask, and Itake hates not being able to properly read his face. They did, he confirms. But I gave them nothing. After a moment of studying him, Pain seems to take this as truth. Madara, however, keeps his gaze locked on Itake. Nagato, he says. I would like to speak to Itake alone, if you don't mind. Pain hesitates a moment. Itaka tips his head slightly. Pain acquiesces, and he brushes a hand over Itaka's shoulder as he passes. I am glad to hear you are all right. The sentiment is genuine. It's sentiments like this that begin to blur the lines for Itaka. With members like Kakuzu and Haiden, it's easy to remember where he stands. But with some of the others, it isn't so black and white. Nagato truly cares, truly believes what he's doing is for the good of everyone. Sometimes, Itaka finds himself believing what he's saying. Pain leaves, most likely back to his real body, or to go find Konan. Itaka is left alone with Madara, and the man's gaze feels like Senbon Pric cling against his skin. I'm being truthful, Itaka is quick to assure him. I didn't tell them anything. Nothing except the tiny whisper of Madara Uchiha that he allowed them to pull from his brain. I hope not, Madara says. I know you still care for that brother of yours back in Konoha. Itaka tenses just slightly. Sasuke's face flashes once more in front of his eyes. Tell me I'm more than that. Madara steps closer. I know the bond of a brother well. I merely hope your loyalty to him doesn't override your loyalty to us. Itaka feels a spark of anger in his chest. Madara stole his own little brother's eyes. He understands nothing of Itaka's feelings for Sasuke. Sasuke, who he has tortured, destroyed. I am Itaka Uchiha of the Akatsuki, he tells him. As I have been from the moment I joined. Madara looks at him from behind the mask. He inclines his head. Very well. I believe you. You should go let Kisame know you've returned. I'm sure he'll be pleased. Is it just Itaka's imagination, or do those words hold a strange sharpness? He feels a sense of wrongness prickle over his skin. Itaka brushes a strand of wet hair from his face, keeping his expression blank. I will. Thank you. Madara's gaze stays on his back as he turns from the room, and its intention is impossible to mistake. He's being watched. Closely. This is stupid, Sasuke thinks. A foolish attempt to pretend like everything is normal. Restless irritation prickles in his chest. His injured hand tightens around the straps of his backpack, causing a sharp pain to shoot through his arm. He stares at Kakashi's back. It's been about 20 minutes since they've left the village, and the four of them have fallen into a rhythmic silence. Sakura and Naruto are walking slightly ahead of him, and they keep shooting him glances that Sasuke pretends he can't see. Red eyes flash through his mind. His hand tightens again. You're nothing to me. Come on, you guys, Kakashi says, looking back at the three of them. We need to pick up the pace. We'll be taking this path until we reach the land of rivers. After that, it'll be about half a day's travel by the trees. Sakura pushes ahead of her two teammates, catching up to the Jounin. Sensei, how important is this document we're delivering? She glances back at Sasuke as she asks this. Sasuke pretends not to notice, his gaze on the path in front of him. Kakashi answers her question, but his voice comes back muffled. Sasuke is aware that he's falling too far behind, but he can't bring himself to increase his pace. He has no energy for it. This mission is a joke. It's pointless. And Itaka is out there, most likely inserting himself right back into the Akatsuki's ranks, as if the last few days never even happened. You want to die. As if he didn't shatter Sasuke's entire world with one simple realization. Sasuke can feel the cracks in his mind as he thinks about it. He remembers the last 5 years of his life, can feel them stretching out before him like a record. 5 years of hating his brother, of making revenge his only goal, and in a few short seconds. That's why you left me alive. Itaka wants to die. He wants Sasuke to take his revenge, to grow strong enough to kill him. He's been nothing more than a tool this whole time. His brother pointed him in a direction, and he followed it without question. Itaka told him to hate him. He told him to keep living in order to kill him. And that's exactly what he did. Nothing has changed. He's still that same little kid clinging blindly to his older brother's words. Cutting his bare feet on the ground in an effort to catch up. If his goal for the past 5 years has been to kill Itaka, but that's exactly what Itaka wants, then what was the point of any of it? What is he going to do now? Why is he even alive? The last thought is a dark one, the likes of which he hasn't felt since the days after the massacre. Back before his anger took hold, when it was despair that consumed him instead. He feels like that now, claws digging in, dragging him under. Without revenge to carry him, what else does he have to live for? There's a kunai tucked away at his waist. For a moment, Suzuki thinks about how easy it would be to slice it across his neck. How quick. What would you do then? He thinks at Ataka viciously, his fingers shaking around the strap of his bag. Who would kill you then, you coward? Would you do it yourself? So easy. So quick. He's thought about it before, blade pressed against his throat, but his anger has always halted him. Who will avenge them if I'm dead? Suzuki. Kakashi calls back to him. Stop lagging behind. Suzuki snaps quickly from his thoughts. His hair is still damp from the lake, as is his forehead protector, and he shivers as a strong wind blows by. He walks faster, unaware he had fallen so far behind. Sakura is looking at him in concern, and her gaze prickles across his skin like ants. He wants to snap at her to stop, but he remembers her kindness on the docks earlier, and it halts his words. I'm sorry, she had said. Her arms had been warm. Like his mother's. The thought of her is like a kunai in his heart. He remembers Ataka standing behind her. Are you alright? Naruto asks him, his voice cutting through the memory. You're being weird. You haven't said a single word this whole time. Everything about the blonde is loud and jarring. Suzuki winces, a sharp pain behind his eyes, and all he can see is the blood on his mother's lips. Hey! Naruto yells, stopping to spin around. Don't ignore me. I hate it when you do that. I'm trying to show I'm worried, Dadabiya. I don't need your worry, Suzuki says lowly. So just shut up, would you? Naruto's hands clench in anger. He walks forward until he's standing directly in front of Suzuki, stopping him from walking. What is the matter with you? Why are you always treating me like this? Because you get on my nerves, Suzuki snaps. Just don't talk to me. Me? We're trying to help you. You're the one deciding to avoid everyone because you have a problem. Naruto, Kakashi says warningly, him and Sakura stopping as well. That's enough. Naruto ignores him. What kind of team are we? A team is supposed to work together and be there for each other. We're trying to help you, and you keep treating us like we don't matter. You don't matter, Suzuki says coldly. None of this matters. Hurt flashes across Sakura and Naruto's faces. Suzuki's hand shakes around the strap of his bag. All he can see is Ataka, standing over his parents' bodies. He sees the sword come down. None of this matters. Everything that matters is gone. How can you say that? Naruto demands. This team is everything to me. You guys are my family. I know you feel the same way. Suzuki grits his teeth, tasting blood. Naruto is right, but he's also so wrong. That's where you and I differ. Naruto blinks. What do you mean? Suzuki thinks of red eyes. Of blood splattered everywhere, his father's lifeless eyes staring into his. He takes a breath, trying to keep his voice calm. You keep saying you know, that you understand. I'm sick of people acting like they know how I feel. You don't understand at all. Nobody does. Kakashi's gaze flickers between the two of them. He seems torn between stepping in or letting the two of them work it out. That's because you never tell us anything. Naruto says. How are we supposed to know if you won't tell us? If you would just talk to us. Suzuki scoffs. And what? Everything will be better then? Talking won't bring my parents back. It won't make Ataka love me. Naruto shakes his head. I know that, he says. I get it. But the pain of holding this all inside isn't going to go away. You're acting like I don't understand how it feels to be alone. But I'm just like you. I know your parents are gone, but that doesn't. This is Suzuki's breaking point. Hearing the words I understand come out of Naruto's mouth when he just outright told him that he couldn't. Shut up, he yells. Just shut up. Naruto steps back in shock. Sakura flinches and even Kakashi's eye widens. This isn't about being alone, Suzuki says. You can understand that, sure. But you've always been alone. You don't know what it's like to have your family torn away from you. You don't know what it's like to have to watch them be slaughtered. Over and over and over, for 2 whole weeks, until all you can see when you blink is their blood. His breathing has picked up, his heart pounding. He sees the blood, hears the screams, attack his hand around his throat. Blood, 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 everywhere. Nii-san. Naruto is staring at him with horrified eyes. What? His face is one of dawning realization. Sakura's is the same, her hand over her mouth. They didn't know, Suzuki realizes. They didn't know what attack as Tsukuyomi showed me. What I was forced to see. There are tears forming in the corner of Sakura's eyes. She steps forward hesitantly. Is that really what you saw? You watched them die, for 2 weeks. The sadness in her eyes hurts too much to look at. It burns in his chest, and he looks away from it. Do you understand what that feels like? He asks Naruto. Do you understand what it feels like to watch them all die thousands of times? Do you understand how it feels when a person you trusted, a person you loved, is the one to do it? Naruto is silent, staring at him with wide blue eyes. Suzuki feels his anger rise up inside him. I said, do you understand that? Naruto swallows. He shakes his head. No, he admits quietly, his voice unsteady. No, I don't. Suzuki's hands curl tighter around the straps of his pack. He sees Ataka smiling at him, his eyes warm and kind. I'm always going to be there for you. None of you understand, he says, the memory burning in his chest. None of you understand how it feels to be betrayed by someone you trusted. Ataka's fingers jabbing his forehead, his eyes fond. Sorry, Suzuki. Next time, okay? Suzuki, Kakashi says quietly. It's the first time he's spoken directly to him since they left Konoha. I know I can never understand the betrayal you're feeling. But I do understand grief. I understand it more than you know. You're letting yourself be consumed by your anger. You can't let it be all you live for. Suzuki bites his tongue. He can feel the curse mark on his shoulder flare briefly, in response to his strong emotions. I'm not saying to forget about Itachi, Kakashi tells him. I'm not saying to forget about what he's done. But you need to let go. I can't. Why not? Because I love him. Suzuki yells, and it feels like the words have been ripped right from the center of him. Don't you get it? Even after everything, I love him, and I hate that I love him. Suzuki chokes on the words, on the burning in the back of his throat. His eyes sting, and he spins around before they can see the tears in his eyes. God, why is he crying? He is so sick of crying. The confession burns on his tongue, the truth that he's never allowed himself to admit. I love him. Still. It feels like a betrayal. Like he's spitting on his parents' graves. He hates that it's true, and he hates that he can't cut it out of himself. He hates them for forcing it out of him. Suzuki hates Itachi. He hates him more than he's ever hated anyone. But deep down, he loves him just as much, and that's the part that hurts the most. He's everything to me. And I'm nothing to him. Suzuki shakes his head. I don't need this, he says. I don't need any of this. He takes off into the trees, pushing off the ground and jumping ahead of them. He wipes angrily at his eyes as he leaves them behind him. Suzuki, wait. Naruto yells, but Kakashi grips his shoulder before he can take off after him. He's just getting a bit ahead of us. Let him go for now. Chapter 28. Suzuki is surprised when no one comes chasing after him. But he's grateful, as he feels his anger begin to fade with the distance he puts between them. Because I love him. Suzuki bites his lip until it bleeds, as his own shouted words echo in his head. They feel like the pounding of a drum, like a hand wrapping around his heart and twisting. I love him. I hate him. He pushes off one of the tree branches with too much force. It breaks beneath his shoe, crashing down 100 feet below. It takes him a whole 20 minutes to calm himself down. To stop his hands from shaking around the straps of his bag, to stop the fire raging in his veins, to stop seeing bloody streets and broken bodies. He pushes from tree to tree, leaving his teammates far behind him on the ground, and he forces himself to breathe. He stops to rest on a sturdy branch, leaning his back against the trunk of the tree. He's far ahead of the other three, and there's no harm in stopping. If they aren't chasing after him, then they won't catch up for a while. He leans his head back against the tree, the bark digging into his spine. A strand of damp hair falls into his eyes, and he flicks it away with his fingers. He stares up at the sunlight peeking through the trees. It's ridiculous, but he feels like the weather is mocking him. What right does it have to be so warm and bright when he feels so fucking miserable? Sasuke closes his eyes. He wants to punch something. He wants to fight someone. He settles for tightening his injured hand into a fist, focusing on the sharp pain that cuts through his anger. Naruto doesn't understand, Sasuke thinks with clenched teeth. None of them do. How dare they stand there and act like they do? But his anger is fading now, and he can't hate them like he had only a few moments ago. Because he remembers Sakura's arms around him. He remembers Kakashi opening his door to him, letting him into his apartment. Naruto, however, still angers him. Acting like he can understand and why had Itaka been after him. You don't interest me at the moment. Sasuke hates how the words tear him apart. He hates how much they hurt, how much they matter. Because I love him, he shouted, and he hates that it's true. Sasuke doesn't know how it's possible to both hate and love the same person so much, to the point where the snarled knot of emotion is a ticking time bomb waiting to explode in his chest. The grief and hope, disgust and longing, hate and love, are too much for one body to contain, and it's tearing him apart from the inside out. Why can't he just let go? There's a kunai at his waist. And it would be so easy to stop feeling anything at all. Sasuke imagines it again how easy it would be. He wonders if Itaka would even care. You're nothing to me. Something brushes against Sasuke's chakra. A presence. Sasuke straightens immediately, instantly alert. His spiraling thoughts fall away, his mind instantly sharpening. Something is watching him. The curse mark responds to the presence. Even with the seal around it, he can feel it pulsing, just beneath his skin. His hand wraps around his kunai, his heart pounding. How could he be careless enough to let his guard down so thoroughly? The leaves rustle in the tree across from him, not the wind. Sasuke hurls his kunai, deadly and precise. It hits, and the rustling stops. Sasuke jumps over to the other tree, landing lightly in a crouch. He brushes the leaves aside, and when he sees it, his fingernails dig into the mark on his shoulder. It's a small white snake, now writhing around the kunai pinning it. They catch up to Sasuke at the border of the land of rivers. From there, they take to the trees. Sasuke doesn't say a word, and simply rejoins them like nothing happened. But Naruto knows better. He can see it in Sasuke's face. Do you think he'll be okay? Sakura asks in a whisper. Not is he okay, but will he be okay? Because whatever he is now, okay is definitely not it. Naruto stares at the Uchiha crest on the back of Sasuke's shirt. The sick feeling in his stomach from when Sasuke yelled at him still hasn't gone away. I don't know. You don't understand at all, he said. Sasuke was right. Naruto doesn't. He thought he did. He believed he could. He and Sasuke are the same. That's something he's always believed, even in the times when he tried to ignore it. And Naruto still believes that they can share each other's pain, but they can't share all of it, and that's what Naruto didn't understand. Naruto is defined by his loneliness. But for Sasuke, it is grief that has wrapped around his neck and refuses to let go. Grief and betrayal. Did you know? Sakura asks quietly, as they both jump to the next branch. She keeps her voice low enough so that their two other teammates in front of them don't hear. Did you know about what Sasuke-kun saw in the Tsukuyomi? Naruto bites his lip. No. I didn't. He thinks about that hallway again, fingers wrapping around Sasuke's throat. He thinks of the cold eyes that stared down at him. Sasuke's screams. A burst of hatred goes through him. He doesn't think he's ever hated anyone so much, not even the villagers that used to kick at his ankles. Itaki Uchiha, Sakura says lowly, and Naruto looks over and sees his own feelings mirrored on her face. I don't understand how someone can be so cruel. Naruto doesn't say anything. He bites the inside of his cheek and keeps moving through the air. 2 weeks, he thinks, trying to understand the reality of what his friend was forced to endure. 2 weeks of watching his family be killed. Even if that's only 3 times per hour. Naruto shakes his head to dislodge the calculations his brain is already trying to make. He's horrible at math, and he isn't sure he wants to know the exact number anyway. Sasuke had said he watched it thousands of times. Neither of them talk for a long time. As the sky begins to grow dark, Kakashi is the first to break the silence, telling them that they're going to bunk down for the night. I was hoping we'd reach the town by nightfall, he says. But we'll have to rest here. We'll need to increase our pace tomorrow. For once, Naruto doesn't complain about sleeping on the ground instead of at an inn. He isn't tired anyway. The 4 of them pull their sleeping bags out. Sakura attempts to talk to Sasuke, but he brushes her off. He pulls his sleeping bag a good distance away from the rest of them. Naruto knows he should try to talk to him. But his pride keeps him in place. For a while, as he hears Sakura's breathing even out beside him, Naruto stares up at the trees, listening to the crickets. Sasuke's words repeat in his head, making it impossible for him to fall asleep. The heaviness in his chest hasn't gone away, and he's starting to think that the only way to make it is to talk to Sasuke. With a huff, Naruto sits up. He looks over at Sasuke, a good 10 feet away. He's laying with his back facing the rest of them, so Naruto can't tell if he's actually sleeping. Kakashi isn't sleeping. He's sitting with his back against a tree, a copy of Ika Ika open in his hands. Naruto moves quietly from his sleeping bag, walking over to him. How can you read that in the dark? He asks, plopping down next to him. His sensei clearly heard his footsteps, because his gaze doesn't move from the novel. Naruto. You should rest up for tomorrow. You're not sleeping either. I'm on watch. Oh, Naruto says. But I thought this mission is only C rank. It's not supposed to be dangerous, right? So why does someone need to keep watch? Kakashi's eyebrow arches. You do remember our last C rank, don't you? Naruto winces, flashing back to the feeling of Sasuke's body in his arms. Okay. You make a good point. The both of them are quiet. Kakashi sits reading his book, the only noise the crickets and the faint sound of breathing. Naruto gnaws on his lip, and his eyes keep flickering toward his sensei. After about 5 minutes of Naruto glancing at him then quickly looking away, the copy ninja finally gets fed up. He sighs, closing his book and turning his attention to his student. Naruto, if you have something to say to me, then just come out and say it. Naruto hesitates. Why didn't you tell me and Sakura-chan about what Sasuke went through? In the Tsukuyomi? Naruto nods, and Kakashi places his hands over the book in his lap. What makes you so sure I knew about it? When Sasuke said it earlier, you didn't look surprised. Sakura-chan was, but you weren't. Kakashi sighs. Sometimes you're more observant than I give you credit for. You're right, I did know about it. But I didn't tell you because it wasn't my place. If it was something Sasuke wanted to share with you, then he would have. Naruto nods. That makes sense. He knows Sasuke never would have opened up to him about it, though. The only reason he told Naruto earlier is because Naruto managed to piss him off enough. I don't know how to help him, the Jinhuriki admits. I thought I knew what he was going through, but really, I don't understand anything. That's not true, Kakashi tells him. There are parts of what he's going through that you can't relate to. But that doesn't mean you can't understand each other in different ways. You can still help him through this. Naruto scowls. How? He's right that I don't understand. He had to watch his family die over 1,000 times. That's horrible, Kakashi-sensei. It's awful. I haven't been through anything near that bad. Kakashi winces slightly. Naruto wonders if he's done the calculations himself, if he knows exactly how many times Sasuke watched his clan's death on repeat. Don't say that, he says. You can't measure trauma like that. You and Sasuke were both affected by your childhood experiences. But his is way worse. Kakashi shakes his head again. Just because someone else has gone through worse doesn't make your pain any less. Your pain isn't less than Sasuke's, it's just different. You're not always going to be able to understand every part of it, and that's okay. Naruto considers the words for a moment. He's surprised to find that the heaviness in his chest has eased slightly. Some of his usual determination has crept back in. He can do this. He can help his teammate, even if he can't perfectly understand. Wow, Kakashi-sensei, Naruto says. Who knew you could actually say such wise things? Kakashi scowls at him and cuffs him around the head, the seriousness of the moment broken. I'm wise all the time. Watch it, or I'll make you take the next shift of watch. Naruto stops immediately. He hates watch. It's so boring, and he always falls asleep, and then in the morning Sakura-chan always gets angry. Kakashi pulls his book up to eye level again seriously. How is he reading it in the dark, glancing briefly at Naruto? You should talk to him, he says, nodding in Sasuke's direction. The two of you need to clear the air. He's sleeping. He's faking. He's still awake. Naruto makes an alarmed expression. Correctly guessing his thoughts, Kakashi continues, don't worry. He's too far away to hear us. Naruto feels relief settle over him. Kakashi gives him a pointed look. Naruto, seriously. Talk to him. We still have quite a journey ahead of us tomorrow, and the silence between the two of you is unbearable. Naruto bites his lip. He stares through the darkness at Sasuke's back. He can make out the faint outline of the Uchiha crest on his shirt. Okay. You're right. Sasuke. Pissed, Sasuke. I know you're awake. Sasuke. Sasuke snarls at the familiar voice less than a foot away. He buries himself deeper in his sleeping bag, pressing himself closer to the hard ground beneath him. Fuck off. Naruto pauses for a moment, most likely stunned by his harsh language. He quickly starts whispering again. But Kakashi-sensei said I should come talk to you. Sasuke squeezes his eyes shut tighter. Then tell Kakashi to fuck off, too. Sasuke. Please. Sasuke pauses. Naruto's tone is one he's rarely heard from him before. Sasuke expected him to get angry, but instead, his voice has gentled. It's become a plea. Sasuke considers continuing to ignore him. He has a feeling that if he did, Naruto might actually let him this time instead of continuing to push. But the tiniest sliver of guilt goes through him, and before he fully registers making the decision, he's pushing himself into a sitting position. What? He says. He brushes his hair from his face, narrowing his eyes in the darkness. What do you want? I wanted to talk to you about earlier. I wanted to say I'm sorry. Sasuke blinks in surprise. Naruto is sitting in front of him, only about a foot of space between them. The expression on his face is sincere. You are. I really was trying to help, he says. But you're right that I didn't understand. So, yeah. I'm sorry. He looks extremely uncomfortable saying the words. But he forces himself to meet Sasuke's eyes when he says them, as if there's something he needs to say. Sasuke finds himself momentarily speechless. He and Naruto don't talk like this, not ever. One of them snipes at each other, and then the other one snipes back. That's how their relationship works. The only time either of them have anything approaching a genuine conversation is when one of them is literally on death's door. Sasuke remembers Haku's needles, the way his body moved without thought. He remembers the words he spoke to his teammate, the ones that he thought would be his last. Don't let your dream die. The 13-year-old swallows. Thinking of that time makes him feel vaguely guilty for earlier, which he hates, because he still agrees with everything he said to Naruto. Naruto doesn't understand. And he has no business acting like he does. But, now he's admitting it? Good, Sasuke tells him with a huff, turning his face away. At least you can finally see that. Is that all you woke me up for? Irritation flashes across Naruto's face. Why do you always have to do that? Why do you always have to be such a jerk? I'm trying to be your friend. Sasuke bites down on the automatic words of "you're not my friend." They aren't true, and Naruto knows they aren't true. Because Naruto is his friend, the closest thing to a friend he has. You must kill your closest friend. Sasuke flinches. I might not be able to understand what you're going through, Naruto says. But I still want to try. And so does Sakura-chan. Because that's what teammates do. We're not just going to leave you alone when we know you're in pain. Sasuke frowns. Absently, his hand moves up to cover the curse mark on his shoulder. When you yelled at me earlier, Naruto continues, you said that losing your parents wasn't about being alone. But then what is it about? What makes it so painful? Sasuke experiences a flash of anger at the question. What makes it painful? Everything about it is painful. He forces himself to calm down. Naruto sounds honestly confused, and Sasuke tries to look at it from his point of view. Naruto's never had any parents to miss, he's always been on his own. For him, it's always been the loneliness that eats away at him. Sasuke feels his ache for them in his heart, just as strong as 5 years ago. He sees his father's smile, can smell his mother's perfume. Attack his 2 fingers against his forehead. When I think about everything that happened, Sasuke says slowly, when it gets too much and I can't see anything else. Sasuke swallows slightly, breaking off. This is hard. He's never talked about it before. He's never wanted to before. When people try to talk to me about it, or try to understand it, they think that all I can focus on is how bad everything is. On being alone now. But it's not like that. It's more like, I can only think about how good everything used to be, and how it's not like that anymore, and it won't be like that ever again. Sasuke's chest hurts. He thinks about evenings around the dinner table. Days when his parents smiled and Itachi laughed. Naruto is staring at him with pained eyes. You're right, he says quietly. I don't understand that. Things have always been bad for me. Sasuke doesn't reply, just digs his nails deeper into the mark on his shoulder. He's been hyper-aware of it ever since he spotted that white snake in the forest. Naruto's eyes flicker to the curse mark in concern, but he doesn't say anything about it. I'm sorry things can't be the way they used to be, he says. But that doesn't mean they can't be good again. You said earlier that this team doesn't matter to you, but it can, if you let it. Sasuke doesn't say anything, simply stares down at his lap. The truth is, Team 7 already does matter to him. Kakashi, Naruto, Sakura, being with them reminds him of how it felt to have family. But what's to stop him from losing them, just like he lost the first one? Chapter 29. Kisame is looking at him again. Not just looking at him, but looking at him, because there is an important distinction between the two. Looking is a quick glance, casual and unmeaningful. But looking, that sort of gaze holds intent. It's the way Kisame has been eyeing him since he returned. Itachi doesn't know why he's doing it, but it puts him on edge. Orochimaru has re-emerged near the land of rivers, Pain says. As you all are aware, it has been nearly 5 years now since he deserted the organization. Itachi forces himself to ignore the weight of his partner's gaze, staring impassively at the shadowy figure of their leader. Around him, the other members of the Akatsuki are also assembled. Orochimaru, Deidara says with a huff. That damn snake again. His personal dislike for Orochimaru is amusing considering he's one of the only Akatsuki members who wasn't a part of the organization when Orochimaru betrayed them. When he failed to steal Itachi's eyes and then ran with his tail between his legs. Itachi finds himself paying closer attention, though it doesn't show on his face. The land of rivers is near Konoha near Sasuke. He's still so close to Konoha. Kisame wonders. After his failed invasion, I thought he would be long gone by now. What's causing him to stick around? Itachi thinks of that wretched mark on his brother's shoulder. He doesn't blink. Are we going to go after him, then? My spy has confirmed his current whereabouts, Sasori says. He has also relayed to me that the man is weakened from his battle with the third Hokage. Now is an opportune time to eliminate him. We might not get this chance again soon, Pain tells them. Orochimaru is not only a traitor to our organization, he is also in possession of our secrets. His knowledge of the Akatsuki is a threat that has plagued us for too long. Great. Deidara says, and even as only a shadowy projection, Itaka can tell that he's grinning widely. Send me after that damn bastard. I've been itching for a chance to kill him. You already got the chance to kill him. You blew a bunch of shit up and he escaped, remember? Deidara hisses at Haiden. Shut up. That's why I want to be the one to kill him. No one escapes from my art. He did. Shut up. Deidara, calm down, Pain says mildly. Deidara huffs, his annoyance perfectly communicated in that one sound. You're not going after Orochimaru. Haiden is right, you had your chance. Ha. Get wrecked. Fuck off, asshole. What does that even mean? Kakuzu and I will go after Orochimaru. He'll be a beautiful sacrifice for Jashin-sama. Oh, not this again. Itaka feels a headache coming on. Enough, Pain says, and the bickering stops. He turns his head, purple eyes locking with Itaka's. Kisame and Itaka will go after Orochimaru. They're already known members of the Akatsuki. If they're spotted, Konoha still won't gain any new intel. Itaka doesn't let his surprise show. He wants to be the one to go after Orochimaru. The snake is after his little brother, after all. But to request it when he's already being watched so closely would have given away too much about his priorities. He's surprised Pain would choose to send him. Sure thing, Kisame says with a shark-like grin. I've been itching for a good fight. What do you say, Itaka-san? What? Deidara yells. No way, Why him? Deidara continues to kick up a fuss. The projections around them begin to fade, and Itaka fades with them, after Pain relays to him Orochimaru's suspected location. Kisame is still watching him. Itaka doesn't turn his back to him. Surprisingly, Team 7 completes their mission easily, without any bumps in the road. They reach the Land of Rivers by late morning of the next day, and by the afternoon, they've delivered the scroll to the daimyo and are on their way back home. We did it, Naruto says. A C-rank mission, and we didn't even get attacked or anything. A few paces ahead of them, Kakashi hears the familiar sound of Sakura hitting her teammate. Idiot. We still have over a day's travel back to Konoha. Don't jinx it. There's still time for us to get attacked. I almost hope we will be, Naruto says with a sigh. This mission's been so boring. What do you think, Sasuke? I agree with Sakura. You're an idiot. Hey. Kakashi feels his lips twitch beneath his mask as he listens to them bicker. A wave of nostalgia washes over him, and he forces the warmth in his chest down. Sakura is right, he tells them. We aren't home yet. It isn't likely we'll be attacked, but it's still a possibility. Don't drop your guard. Sakura and Naruto are walking together just a few paces behind him. Sasuke is walking a bit quicker than his two teammates, and is at Kakashi's side. Unlike the other two, he's definitely still on his guard. Kakashi glances at him as they walk. He's been avoiding speaking to his student during this mission, because of the secret that he's holding regarding the massacre. You and Naruto seem to have worked things out. His voice is quiet, not carrying far enough behind them for the other two to hear. Sasuke shrugs his shoulders and responds at the same volume. I guess. I'm glad the two of you were able to come to an understanding. He really was trying to help you, you know. All of us are. Sasuke's jaw tightens. The sun glints off the metal plate of his Hitai-8. I know. Everyone wants to help. The voice isn't sharp, the way Kakashi expected from his expression. Instead it sounds tired, the voice of someone who's been fighting against a current for far too long. Kakashi doesn't know what to make of Sasuke at this point. He considers himself good at reading people, but he can't say with certainty where his student's mind is at. Sometimes, when Sasuke speaks, he seems fine. He seems better, like he's actually making strives to heal. But other times, it's like he's not even there. Kakashi thinks of Sasuke's outburst yesterday, the troubling words he had spoken. He wonders if it's a good idea to bring that up, to talk about it. Or if it's better to let sleeping dogs lie. Kakashi has never been good about talking about the emotional things. Given the choice between confronting an issue, or ignoring it and hoping it works itself out, he's always chosen the latter. But he's been trying to do better lately, and that means actually talking to his students about things. He remembers Sasuke's words, torn out of him like a horrible confession. Because I love him. It's okay, you know, Kakashi says quietly. Sasuke frowns, turning to look at him. What's okay? It's okay for you to love him. Sasuke goes tense immediately. He stumbles briefly before rebalancing himself. Don't. That isn't don't. There's anger in his voice, but also shame. Disgust at his own feelings for someone he believes to be a heartless monster. He's your brother, Sasuke. Of course you love him. He killed everyone. He did, Kakashi says. But that doesn't make the first 7 years of your life any less real. But it wasn't real, Sasuke says harshly. He never cared. All of it was just pretend. His lips twist as he says the words. A shadow passes through his eyes, as he remembers something Kakashi can't see. He was never who I thought he was. I never knew him at all. Kakashi looks at the betrayal in his student's eyes, and he wants so badly to correct him. He remembers Itaka's hands curled into the collar of his vest as he snarled, "My brother is all I think of." For all Itachi Uchiha's actions, he has always loved his brother. The truth in no way justifies what he put Sasuke through, but it does confirm that one fact. He has always loved you. Kakashi wishes he could tell him that now. But he can't. He can't tell Sasuke the reasons behind his brother's actions, the same way he can't tell Naruto who his parents are. He holds that secret behind his teeth every time he looks at the blonde boy, and now he has to hold this one, too. Sasuke's hand closes around his shoulder as they talk around his curse mark. Kakashi tenses, and he realizes this is the second time he's seen his student do that. With everything going on, he hasn't given it much thought in a while. "Is the curse mark bothering you?" he asks, a furrow between his eyebrows. Sasuke quickly drops his hand. "It's fine. I've noticed that it tends to respond to strong emotions. Be careful. Remember, the seal I placed on it is dependent on your will." "I know." The two of them are silent for a while, Naruto and Sakura chatting quietly behind them. After a moment, Sasuke speaks up again. "In the Forest of Death, when Orochimaru showed up, he mentioned Itachi. It sounded like they knew each other. Do you know how?" Kakashi frowns. "No, he doesn't know. It's surprising, considering the information about Itachi he now knows." "I don't know," he says. "The only connection between them I can think of would be Umbu. They were both members. But that doesn't make sense either, because your brother became a member at 11. Orochimaru had already left the village by then. I think he might have wanted Itachi's body before mine." Kakashi considers the words. "That is a definite possibility. Orochimaru has always been fascinated by the Sharingan." Sasuke winces, his hand once again going to his shoulder. He doesn't speak again. They walk under a large tree, the sun disappearing. Kakashi gets a sudden sense of déjà vu. For a moment, Sasuke isn't wearing his normal clothes, instead he's wearing an Umbu uniform. For a moment, Itachi is the one standing next to him. The sun comes out from behind the tree. The mirage dissipates. Kakashi is left feeling shaky and uneasy. Sasuke deserves to know the truth about his family. Naruto deserves to know the truth about his, too. But unfortunately, that isn't his call to make. Chapter 30. A familiar scene. A familiar memory. He stands outside the door. His bare feet are cold against the wooden floorboards. Fear freezes him in place. His shaking hands raise to the door handles, his entire body trembling. The room in front of him is radiating killing intent, and every single part of him is screaming at him to flee. But he doesn't. He can't. He remembers how this scene plays out. It's written down, he's memorized it, it's all he knows. He pulls the door open and rushes inside, a desperate cry on his lips. "Nii-san." His entire life, defined by a single cluster of seconds he can never forget. But something's wrong. Something's different. The memory catches, goes off script. Itaka doesn't step out of the shadows when he enters the room, bloody uniform and empty eyes. Instead, he doesn't move, nothing more than a shadowy figure above the corpses at his feet. Sasuke runs to his parents and falls to his knees. Their blood soaks into his skin. Tears build in his eyes and fall down his cheeks. "No," he says desperately. "No dio you-san ka-san." His father lays face down, over his mother's chest. The Uchiha crest on his back is sliced through, soaked in blood. Sasuke grips his shoulder with bloody hands, turning him over. The air is punched from his lungs. He gasps. Naruto's face stares back at him. His orange tracksuit is dyed crimson, and his blue eyes are empty and dead. Sakura is beneath him. Her neck is sliced open, gaping grotesquely. Blood is spilling from the wound, mixing with her bright pink hair. Her eyes are closed. A fist has wrapped around his heart, squeezing, squeezing, squeezing. He can't breathe. He can't think. "No," he gasps. "No, no, no." He chokes on the sob that claws its way out of his throat, his head snapping up. "Why?" he asks desperately. Itaka looks down at him impassively. "Because they were yours," he says. "Foolish little brother. What other reason do I need?" Sasuke wakes up with the smell of blood still in his nose. He gasps, sitting up. His body is shaking, and his breathing is unsteady. His heart races. Slowly, the world filters back in. The ground is hard beneath him. Forest smells replace the coppery scent of blood. Around him, crickets chirp and cicadas sing. The night sky is black through the trees. Sasuke closes his eyes and tries to calm his racing pulse. He sees his teammates laid out on the floor of his house, like his parents. He sees Itaka standing above them. He sees bright blue eyes that are now lifeless and dull, sees bubblegum hair soaked red. He hears Itaka's voice. "Foolish little brother." His heart stutters. A quiet sob threatens to escape his lips, and he quickly swallows it down. His eyes desperately search out his teammates. They're laying not too far from him, sleeping in their own sleeping bags. Silently, Sasuke unzips himself from his, standing up and walking over slowly. His hands shake. He knows it's stupid, like a child sneaking into their parents' bed at night, but he needs to see that they're breathing. Kakashi is sleeping against the tree, his book open on the ground next to him at an angle that crumples the pages. He must have fallen asleep during watch. Sasuke rolls his eyes as he walks past him, careful not to make any noise. Naruto and Sakura are sleeping next to each other. Sasuke's heart stutters in a panic when he sees them. Their bodies flash in front of his eyes, blood collecting beneath them, on his hands. Sasuke's hands shake. He curls them into fists. Sakura and Naruto are breathing, of course they are. The amount of relief he feels is ridiculous. It was only a nightmare. "You're being stupid. It wasn't real." But he can still feel their blood on his skin. Still hear Itaka's voice. The two of them are curled on their sides, facing each other. Their hands are next to each other in the space between them, their fingers barely touching. Something about how close they are makes Sasuke's chest ache. He turns his head away from them. He can't stand these feelings inside them. They hurt. They burn. Of course it burns. Love always does. Because they were yours. Sasuke walks back away from them. His chest is tight, and he needs to get away from them. He needs somewhere to breathe. Being this close to them, and yet still not close enough, is unbearably painful, and it feels the same as Itaka's fingers wrapped around his throat. What other reason do I need? Sasuke makes sure not to wake his sensei as he passes him, knowing he'll stop him if he sees him going off alone. Sasuke walks away from the place where they made camp, not too far away, but he puts just enough space between them to feel comfortable with letting himself slide down to the ground. His back against a tree, he bites his lip to force back tears. He feels secure in the knowledge that no one is watching him, but he still won't let himself cry. He's done too much of it lately. Images from his nightmare flash before his eyes. Naruto and Sakura, replacing the place of his parents in his memory. Stolen from him, just as they were. The message is painfully clear. Anything he cares for will eventually be ripped away. There is no reclaiming happiness once it has been lost. Sasuke thinks of his mother and father, of the four of them smiling around the dinner table. He thinks of the way the house was, full of light and sometimes even laughter. He thinks of the tomb that it became memories of blood and death and betrayal washing away everything bright. Sasuke misses home. He misses it even more when he's there. He stares up at the moon, barely visible through the trees. The moon was full on that night, as well. Sasuke remembers looking up, glimpsing the brief silhouette perched against the night sky. Sasuke feels vaguely disconnected from himself. It feels like his 2 feet are in 2 separate places, one here, and one 5 years in the past. Something has wrapped around his chest, a heavy, pressing sadness, and it drags him down, down, down. Sasuke doesn't know how long he sits there. The world fades out. It's replaced by vivid memories of blood. He's running down a street littered with weapons and corpses, and the air smells like death. He trips over a body, scraping up the palms of his hands. Why? His ears buzz, and the smell of the forest assaults his senses. It mixes with the smells in his memory, red smeared across wooden floorboards, the twisting of his brother's eyes. His parents' bodies, crumpled on the ground. His father's dead eyes. His mother's hair spread out around her like a shadowy halo. Why did I have to be the one to live? The forest grows eerily quiet. There are no crickets, no cicadas, no frogs. Their lullabies disappear altogether. Even the wind is silent. Sasuke can hear his own heart in his chest, feel every beat of it against his ribs. He hears the uneven sound of his own breathing. It makes him sick. He closes his eyes and tries to think of home, but all of his memories are tainted in blood. Itachi's kind eyes are fractured, becoming sharp and cruel. His gentle smile is twisted. Sasuke hates him with an intensity that sets him on fire. He hates him for stealing everything. He hates him for leaving. He hates him so much, with everything in him, that he feels like he could die. Isn't that what you really want? The voice sounds achingly like his mother, whispering to him like she did when she tucked him into bed. He longs for her so badly that his very soul seems to reach out. In the end, he is alone. Naruto and Sakura and Kakashi, he is able to pretend with them for a while. But they will never fill the shadows left by those Itachi ripped from him. Isn't this what you really want? 5 years of his life, and all of it for nothing. He is nothing more than a tool, shaped and molded and manipulated by his brother's hands. Hate me, despise me, kill me. His revenge will not be revenge anymore. It will be empty. Worthless. Avenging his clan holds no meaning if he's following the blueprints their murderer laid out for him. It would not be vengeance, it would be mercy, and Itachi deserves none. Sasuke can't take it anymore. He can't bear it. Then don't, his mother whispers. She presses their foreheads together. Blood spills from her lips. Just stay here with me. With us. Isn't that what you really want? The strange, liquid-like feeling returns. It washes over him slowly. It's as though he's slipping away into a heavy, unfamiliar sleep, one he might never wake up from. And isn't that fine? At least then. His hand slips down to the pouch at his waist. He pulls the kunai from it, and the metal is cold against his palm. He runs his thumb against the sharp edge, drawing a drop of blood. Itachi's voice rings in his ears. You're nothing to me. You're not even worth killing. His hand is shaking as he brings the blade up to his throat. He holds it there against his skin, and the silence around him is deafening. It isn't the first time he's done this, though it's been years now. He waits for the familiar flood of anger to stop him, to remind him. Who will kill Itachi if you kill yourself? Who will avenge them if you're dead? He waits for it, and it doesn't come. Not this time. What comes instead is the memory of Itachi's dark eyes in that interrogation room. The realization that he wants to die, that he wants Sasuke to give him that mercy. His hand shakes around the kunai. He feels a drop of blood slide down his throat. No, Sasuke thinks, his grip tightening on the weapon. I won't be used by you. It was never about simply killing Itachi. It was about being stronger. It was about beating him. Itachi wants to die. He wants Sasuke to kill him. But Sasuke refuses to follow his manipulations any longer, refuses to be his puppet. If Itachi truly wants Sasuke to kill him, then the only true way to get his revenge is to. The blade is cold against his skin. There's a slight trickle of fear in his chest, but it's overridden by a steely resolve. He wants Itachi to know. He wants Itachi to understand. He wants his brother to stare down at his body, at the bloody kunai in his hand, and he wants him to realize that this is how he made him feel. He won't give Itachi what he wants. He refuses to. And maybe, just maybe, there's a small part of him that wants to believe his brother was lying when he said the words "you're nothing to me." A small part of him that hopes, against all reason, that his brother cares. That this will make him hurt. The edge of the kunai is sharp against his neck. Sasuke takes a shaky breath. I win, Itachi. I beat you. In a quick motion, he moves to drag the blade across his throat. A rock hits his hand, sending the kunai flying. He cries out in pain, pulling his hand to him and cradling it. He feels a sudden burst of killing intent, and the mark on his shoulder burns. With wide eyes, he snaps his head up. Orochimaru is standing above him in one of the trees. He smiles down at Sasuke, his teeth glinting in the moonlight. Now. Let's not be hasty, Sasuke-kun. Check the description for the links to the author.